Welcome back then folks to the second build for today in Special Projects pack number 20, and as some of you already correctly assumed, this is, well, given that it's a mid-60s Mustang, pretty obviously a fictional build for Saleen. It's not like they were building cars then, not for another, 20 years after this point in fact, but it's a Mustang. It's a classic, of course, Shelby as its base, the GT350, and this is, as I said, reimagined like an alternate timeline. What if Saleen had been around for longer, and what if they had participated in racing with said Mustang back in the day? So kind of a Trans Am style build. I'm sure for the Trans Am aficionados you will point out to me where I've gone wrong in terms of power and weight, because from what I could see online it seems a little bit vague in terms of what actual horsepower and weight the cars had. I could find some general guidelines in terms of what was or wasn't allowed. We've probably bent those rules a little bit in the case of this one, but again, it's Gran Turismo, and it's not like they ever do that with race car specs. 900 horsepower Gillet. But as far as the livery goes, that is actually what started this. This player had just done this one, I spotted it in the livery search, and I just thought, you know what, I love that idea. It's a great alternate history idea, and that is all where it began. And sometimes, you know, that's where it all starts. If you make a cool livery, and I happen to find it or see it, it could end up as a special project. And that's exactly what happened here. So as far as the specs goes, 1200 kilos, 360 horsepower, so it's nothing too crazy there. Seems believable enough. In fact, I could honestly see this maybe not being quite powerful enough, to be honest, and I'm calling this one the S271, which again is of course a tribute to the later S281 Mustangs, and that is a reference to its cubic inches. 271 is actually not a 271 because we have increased the engine size to technically a 4.5 litre, which I think, if memory serves, is more like an S274, but that just doesn't sound as good, so I've called it the S271, so you'll have to just make your peace with that, I guess. So as far as the actual parts, if we jump into the ultimate section, you don't need to worry about anything there. For the sports stuff, you want your stage 1 weight. It has comfort mediums anyway, but I have upgraded it to sports hards. Again, it's a classic racer, so it depends how challenging or how realistic you want it to be. I did consider just jumping all the way to racing hards, but I thought, you know what, that seems like a bit of overkill. You could do it, and I certainly would probably do it myself if it was just my own build, but for those who I do know prefer a bit more realism, I have gone for the sports tyres. As far as the engine, like I said, it is bored out. We've got the high lift cams, the power restrictor and the ballast, of course. For the semi-racing stuff, we've got the diff. I've opted for, again, a more period-correct feeling, fully customised manual box, so you do have that little bit of a delay, and of course a slight advantage on points, which is nice as well. I haven't bothered with the rigidity for this one. It does lower it a little bit anyway. I guess you could go for it, you could give it a try. I would say drive it first and see if you feel like you want to add it later on. As far as the racing stuff, of course, we've got the stroked out engine as well as bored as well. Personally, I'm more of a stroker fan than a bored out engine fan because I like my low end torque and big beefy engines. You can never tell given that I love Lincolns. As far as the rest, we've got the racing filter, the silencer, the manifold, the pads, and of course the discs. I've opted for the drilled, mostly just for the look of it, so you could go for the slotted. We've got the fully customised suspension, of course the clutch and flywheel. Like I said, I would personally probably go for the racing hards, but that jumps you way up on points to 620, which is a bit hefty for a car that's only got 360 horsepower. Again, it's down to you though. For the extreme stuff, probably surprisingly, I actually have not gone for the angle adapter because I didn't want it to end up being too twitchy, especially on those lower tyres, so I'll leave it down to you as always. So it's not too crazy in terms of what we've done to the car, especially for a racing style build, and I have done a few of these kind of reimagined alternate history sort of builds, like the Maserati, what was it, Group 4 or Group 5, I can't remember now, that racing one which I did a couple of packs ago. As far as the actual build, you can already see from the downforce it's looking a bit leery because it's got none at all, and we'll get to that in a second. As far as the suspension, first of all, 110mm on the ride height. I definitely wanted it a lot lower. In fact, I wanted it lower than that, to be honest, because back in the day these cars were like scraping the ground, but here in the game, even if you stiffen the springs and dampers right up, it just doesn't like it. It really does not like braking when you lower the car too much, and of course some are definitely worse than others there. The, what was it, Porsche GT3 RS I think is one of the absolute worst. So, as far as the anti-roll, we've got 540 all round for the dampers. Pretty hefty on the springs, 3.2. A lot of camber, although I say that, a lot by road car standards. That's about average for what I do for a race car, 3 degrees. As far as toe, it's towed out 0.5 on the front, towed in 0.20 on the rear, so not quite as crazy on toe as it is on other stuff. As far as the diff, won't necessarily be for everyone, but this is definitely a fairly twitchy car. Part of that, of course, is having less weight, and also it's just a classic in general running on sports tyres, so it's not going to handle like an Evo, but 10, 60 and 60 is roughly like a sweet spot for me. So I would say give it a try. If you like it, go with it. If you want to change it, of course, that's always your prerogative. I've said it, especially back in the day, these are always canvases to work from, and then you can just do whatever you want after that point. As far as the transmission, fairly close ratio to 60, so up around, what's that, about 165 probably miles an hour, somewhere around there. That should be good enough most of the time. Certainly better than the standard boxes these cars had back in the day for top-end speed. As far as the ballast, 57 kilos on that one. That's totally arbitrary. Like I said, it's not a real car, so you could go for whatever you want. I just thought that seemed kind of accurate to what I would imagine a car like this could weigh. I've put it all the way to the rear as well to make it slightly more grounded over the back end and over those rear wheels. As far as the ECU, of course, that's standard anyway. And then we get to the downforce, because it doesn't have a big old wing. If it had a good-looking ducktail wing, I'd have loved to have fitted that, but it just doesn't. It looks stupid when you put a racing wing on a lot of these cars, unfortunately. So you do have the option of adjusting it on the front. But, as I said earlier on in the Tom's MR2 build, that can throw off a car completely. So if you want to try it with some downforce, of course you will sacrifice some points as well, but if you want to try it, see if you prefer it, which will make it a bit more tail happy, because of course having downforce on the front and not on the back allows the back end to be even more loose. But give it a try. Like I said, a lot of the fun is testing things out. And then over here, of course, you can see all of the various things which we've done. So all that remains is to take this what-if build out to Willow Springs and show you what it's actually like to drive. Like I said, this build is designed to feel like a classic. So it's tighter, sharper, faster, lower, lighter, everything which you would want from a race car or a track car, but it still has that kind of bite-back mentality, because yes, you want it to be challenging, but you also want players who are less experienced to not just give up straight away on a car. So we're much more in that kind of point now. My advice in terms of using it and learning it is actually a two-stage thing. And one of the reasons why I brought it to Willow Springs is personally I don't like this track. I'm not a huge fan of circuits which have long sweeping corners. I just don't really like it. I prefer really like tight hairpins or square corners. That's more my kind of vibe. Nürburgring style. But here, if a car is going to lose its way mid-corner, it's going to be at Willow Springs, because the corners are so long and sweeping with nothing to save you from going off the track. If you can handle it here, you can handle it anywhere. So with that in mind, this car is a vehicle which on lap 1 I would say take it easy, give the car respect, you'll kind of get a feel of where it can go, and then lap 2 is really where things change, because on lap 2, at least in my experience, and it may be the same for you, you'll actually find you can be a lot more aggressive with the car than you initially feel like you can. In fact, sometimes you'll end up finding being more aggressive with the car actually makes it better than kind of tiptoeing around it. You need to give it respect, but don't fear the car, if that makes sense. So if you want a bit more of a challenge than some of the others, give it a try. If you're a Mustang fan, an alternate history fan, well, there's a lot to love about a classic Saleen Trans Am style build. Of course, check out the builds which we've already done, of course, this week, and we've only got 2 left to do tomorrow. So of course, stay tuned for those, and for now, thanks for watching.